Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's episode, we are doing a review of a couple different brown ales. Brown ales are another style that I think are often overlooked and for no good reason. All of the brown ales I've ever had, I've really enjoyed. It's just one of those styles that people go for a stout or a porter instead, but I think that we should give brown ales another look, and I kind of expect that the two I have today are going to be very good case examples for that sentiment. Today we are reviewing firstly the Funky Buddha No Crusts. This is a peanut butter and jelly brown ale. 6.4% ABV on this one. They are based out of Oakland Park, Florida. And then secondly, we have DuClaw Brewing's Dirty Little Freak. This is a brown ale brewed with coconut, chocolate, caramel, and vanilla. A little bit lower ABV at 5.8% on this one, and they are based out of Baltimore, Maryland. So a couple different flavored brown ales. I've had many brown ales, but I have never had any with anything added outside of the standard brown ale recipe: water, malted barley, hops, and yeast. That's it. So I'm really excited to see what kind of some additives add to this beer style, which I happen to personally love. So without further ado, we're going to jump right in with the Funky Buddha No Crusts. All right, jumping right in it with the Funky Buddha No Crusts, the peanut butter and jelly brown ale. I'm particularly excited for this one. Legitimately, you can call it a child sandwich if you want, but it's one of my absolute favorite sandwiches in the world. I love a peanut butter and jelly. It's the simplicity of it and the perfect marriage of two just symbiotic ingredients. I can't wait. 6.4% ABV on this one out of Oakland Park, Florida. Let's see if there's anything of note on the label art. Yeah, there's a slice of bread sitting in a barber's chair getting the crust trimmed off of itself. So that's kind of interesting. But nonetheless, let's get this one poured. I don't want to be too rough. Brown ales, in my experience, have a decent bit of carbonation in them. And yeah, this one looks like it's pretty effervescent. So I'm going to be gentle to start, and then we'll just rough it here at the end. Okay, yeah, that was the way to go. Okay. Holding it up, appearance-wise, this is a classic brown ale. Looks exactly as I expected, and indeed it's quite effervescent. I know it's hard to tell from the camera. I'm sure it's not picking it up, but it is quite effervescent. The head formed beautifully. It's got a nice silky, light, tight foam head, bubbles on the top with some medium ones underneath. So it'll break down here in a little bit, but let's jump right in, give it a sniff. That smells quite nice. It smells quite strongly of jelly, and jelly paired with classic brown ale malts. So you get a nice mix of brown ale and jelly. Now, I'm not really picking up the peanut butter on the aroma. No, not at all. But I'm sure that it's in there. It smells really nice. The fruity jelly nature of it, it smells really good. It just makes you want to jump right in. And indeed, I'm going to do just that. So let's jump in it. Okay. Yeah, there it is. All right. That's a very nice beer. This is a very well balanced beer. Up front, you get that nice fruity, it doesn't taste sweet, but it gives you the impression of sweet. I've had some other beers I'd reviewed like that. It's not a sweet beer, but the jelly flavor and aroma is so prominent and it smells so strongly of fruit and it comes through so strongly in the beer that your brain just thinks sweet, just associates that flavor and that aroma with sweet, even though it's not at all. Then the jelly starts to get a little bit out of the way, and then the peanut comes through. It doesn't taste of peanut butter so much more so as it does roasted peanuts. But it pairs exceptionally well with the jelly, and then the malts come through, a classic brown ale malt characteristic. And then the three just are working in absolute perfect harmony and just equal balance. They come in stages, jelly, then peanut, then malt, and then they're just equals all the way through, and this finish is still going. And it finishes at the end with the jelly as the prominent flavor that comes through, with just a little hint of underlying peanut and a little hint of the underlying malt. Overall, this is really nice. It's exceptionally well balanced. It's a good beer. Peanut butter and jelly brown ale, I would say that they probably nailed it here on that if they're going for a PB&J in brown ale form. I'm not sure how much better you could do it than that. It's really nice. Let's jump in and explore a little body and mouthfeel. .4. It's got a heck of a lot more heft than your average brown ale. I would say this is easily medium heavy, teetering on heavy for a brown ale. It's got some real substance to it. The mouthfeel is very smooth. A little bit of effervescence in there because it is an effervescent style. And I wouldn't say that it's viscous because it's not. But the weight of it really lets it stick around the palate, much more so than the thickness of the beer. It's only got a slightly greater thickness than, say, that of water, and certainly less than that of fruit juice. But the interplay and the way that it's structured, it does a really, really great job at getting the flavor profile through. This is a really good beer. If you like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and you also happen to like brown ales, I have no doubt that you will really, really enjoy this one. I'm going to take my sweet time really breaking this down while I come up with my ratings. And when we come back, we'll get to our second and final beer of the day, the DuClaw Dirty Little Freak. That's the brown ale brewed with coconut, chocolate, caramel, and vanilla. 5.8% ABV on that one. All right, for our second and final beer of today's review, we're jumping into DuClaw Brewing's Dirty Little Freak. It's a brown ale brewed with coconut, chocolate, caramel, and vanilla. So I expect it's going to be pretty decadent here. In fact, the kind of base ingredients might produce a flavor profile similar to a Girl Scout Samoa's cookie. You know, the vanilla in there, it's going to add that extra like you get with a cookie. Like most cookies have a little vanilla extract. So, you know, I expect that's the base ingredients, and maybe it'll come out tasting like one, which I would not consider a bad thing at all. This one is slightly lower ABV than the Funky Buddha. This is only 5.8%. And again, DuClaw is out of Baltimore, Maryland. So let's go ahead and get this one poured right in the glass. Yep, that is another textbook looking brown ale there, quite effervescent. Head's not going too insane, so I can get a little more aggression at the end. Yeah, that did nicely. Okay. Yep, this visually is indistinguishable from the Funky Buddha No Crusts. It looks the exact same in depth of color and how much light comes through and the effervescence. The head, I was a bit more gentle, so it didn't bloom up quite as heavily, but this had a lot of medium and large-sized bubbles, so it would have collapsed quite quickly nonetheless. But it did form a nice one. Let's go ahead and give it a sniff. That's a nice smelling beer. The added ingredients in here don't really come through that heavily at all. Really what I mostly smell is a sweeter brown ale malt base, maybe just a hint of caramel and vanilla that comes through. I can't really pick out any chocolate or coconut. I'm gonna go in for just one more sniff. Yeah, it's predominantly malt and just a hint of caramel, which really is probably coming from the malt aroma itself, and just a touch of vanilla. Can't really detect the chocolate nor the coconut, but let's jump in and see what it tastes like. That's nice. That's a nice beer. Oh, it gets better as the finish continues to develop. Okay. Oh, there's that coconut. Oh, pairing with that chocolate. Yeah, that's quite nice. Not much in the way of the vanilla or caramel, so much in the flavor profile. There's a little bit of caramel up front when it first gets in your mouth, though honestly, I don't know if it's from the caramel addition or if it's the actual base malts themselves. I would suspect it's actually from the malts and not from the added caramel. The vanilla really just adds a hint on the nose, and it's subtle. Not really much, so to speak, in the beer itself, but it's a nice beer. It does start quite sweet, but you do get the impression of, you know, almost like a cookie. I don't want to say it's like a cookie because the malts themselves don't lend themselves really to a cookie flavor profile, but you can taste the ingredients in there, and it pairs with the natural sweetness of the malt base. Gonna jump back in here and do a little mouthfeel and body exploration and check the finish again. Okay, so at the very front, it's that sweetness, that maltiness. That's where you get the little bit of the vanilla that comes through and the little bit of the caramel that comes through. And that's also predominantly where you get the bulk of the coconut. As the finish develops, it kind of merges the chocolate and the coconut together, and you can start to pick out the chocolate notes with just a slight hint of the caramel undertone. Body-wise, at 5.8, this isn't a super high ABV beer, so it doesn't have as many fermentables in it. I would say it's medium. It's probably about average for an average brown ale. It's not on either extreme. It's not heavy. It's not light. It's just kind of middle of the road. Mouthfeel-wise, feels very much textbook like a brown ale should. It really is not that much more viscous than the viscosity of water, but it's got a nice smooth mouthfeel that's pretty effervescent because it is an effervescent style. So it's sitting right in the range of what I expect from a brown ale. Really, the kind of party piece of this one is those extra ingredients they threw in. And I really enjoy how they develop and come in different waves throughout the course of when you first get it in your mouth and how it completes the finish. And I can still taste a little hint of coconut and that last little residual malt base and sweetness from the malts on the end. It's still going. It's not a pronounced flavor that keeps going on the finish. It's very subtle, but it does keep going. It's got some staying power. One final sip just to see if I can get any additional insight here. The last thing I pick up is at the very beginning when it first gets in your mouth before it starts to break open into that coconut and caramel. It actually does have this slightly boozy quality to it. It doesn't taste boozy like a really heavy imperial stout does, but it does have just this kind of nod of booziness to it. And it immediately gets out of the way and lets the beer do the rest of the work. But nonetheless, I really like this one as well. These are great beers. I love brown ales, and I've never had brown ales with additives in them. And I think it's a great base style for adding some stuff in. I think it's an underappreciated style of beer, and that's a shame because it's very, very enjoyable, especially when you like darker beers anyway. Maybe even somewhere between a maltier, like an Americanized Oktoberfest style, and a darker beer like a porter. This fits neatly in the middle, and it kind of gives you the best of both worlds, and it's not too heavy. It's a really nice beer style, and I enjoyed both of these. So I'm going to take my time, finish sipping on this, come up with my scores for this one, and when we come back, we'll get them both ranked top to bottom. All right, now that we have gotten to taste and thoroughly delve into both of these beers, we're going to get them ranked top to bottom, starting with the Funky Buddha, no crusts, the PB&J Brown Ale, 6.4% ABV on this one out of Oakland Park, Florida. Starting with the aroma. The aroma on this one was nice. It certainly was more pronounced than your average brown ale, and you could really smell that jelly on the nose. Not so much the peanut butter or peanut really of any kind, but you did get the jelly, and you could definitely pick up the malts behind the jelly as well. But the jelly was a dominant aroma, and it was quite pronounced, well above average. I enjoyed it a lot. 7 out of 10. Taste on this one. The taste was really nice. The base brown ale was very, very well done. The peanut butter and jelly was a really nice idea, and I think it pairs well with the style for a number of reasons. The only thing that made me dock points on this was there just wasn't enough peanut butter presence that came through. And when I did get the hint of it, it really tasted more like roasted peanuts than peanut butter itself. It was more jelly dominant, and then the malts, it just the faintest hint of peanut. But still, I enjoyed it. 8 out of 10. Body, this was such a great body for a brown ale. I was on the fence, but I ended up going with my gut. I docked at 1 point. It was close to perfection. I gave it a 9. Mouthfeel, this was textbook brown ale. You got a perfect 10 there. The finish on this was really nice, and it was quite long. You just kept getting that jelly. It just kept going, and then the malts behind, and it was a beautiful combination. I gave it an 8, well above average. Head and retention on this one, I gave it a 10. It formed exactly as you would expect on a brown ale, and I really appreciated how it bloomed up and really held its own. 10 out of 10. Appearance-wise, this was another classic brown ale. I mean, you can't ask for more. It was textbook. That's a 10 out of 10. Balance on this. It was well balanced. Between the malt and the added ingredients, it was a well-balanced beer. Again, I just would have needed more peanut butter, whatever you care to term it, presence to boost it up. But I still gave it above average. I gave it a 7. Feeling and intangible, I really enjoyed this beer. For the same reason, again, I did dock some points just from my own subjective feelings on it. I wanted more peanut butter, and it just didn't deliver, but I still really enjoyed it, so I gave it an 8. Finally, as an example of the style, this is a very, very well done brown ale. As a brown ale on its own, it would be a really great beer. Adding peanut butter and jelly to it, really great idea for the style, in my opinion. I think it pairs exceptionally well together. Being that it was peanut butter and jelly brown ale, I particularly appreciated it, but I would have rated it higher if the peanut butter came through with more presence, and it just didn't. So as it were, I only gave it an 8 out of 10, which is still well above average. That brings the total score to the Funky Buddha No Crusts to an 85 out of 100. So a well above average beer and an excellent brown ale indeed. If you like brown ales and or PB&J, I think you'd probably really enjoy this one. I do recommend it. Number 2, DuClaw Brewing's Dirty Little Freak. This is the brown ale with chocolate, coconut, caramel, and vanilla. So a big bill of additive ingredients. Lower ABV by 0.6, 5.8% on this one, and they are out of Baltimore, Maryland. For the aroma on this one, the aroma, it was okay. It was just average. It wasn't weak. It wasn't strong. It was just middle of the road. It gets a 5. For the taste was really, really nice. I enjoyed it. Just like the Funky Buddha, had a really nice backbone for a well done brown ale, and then the additives just added that little something extra. I would have liked a little more vanilla essence in there, and I would have liked a little more interplay of the chocolate and the caramel instead of just that hint of chocolate that mixed with the coconut on the front. But otherwise, it was still above average. I gave it an 8. The body on this one, I give it the exact same as the Funky Buddha. It was just so close to being perfect. I gave it a 9. Mouthfeel. This was the exact same as the Funky Buddha. It was textbook brown ale. It got a perfect 10 out of 10. The finish on this one. The finish on this one was similar to the Funky Buddha, but it had a little more staying power. And I really appreciated what I was tasting as it continued to finish. It didn't just finish one way. It just continued to let you taste the interplay of the chocolate, coconut, caramel, just whisper of vanilla, and the malt backbone. It was very, very enjoyable, well above average. I gave it a 9. Head and retention on this one. Admittedly, I didn't pour it as aggressively, but it still should have bloomed up a bit more, especially when I started going straight down the middle for the last part of the bottle. It still formed. It just collapsed a little too quickly. The bubbles formed just a bit too large, but still within range, well above average. I gave it a 9. Appearance-wise, this was another textbook brown ale. It doesn't get any better than that for a brown ale. 10 out of 10. The balance on this was quite nice. If it had had a little more chocolate presence, a little more vanilla presence, and honestly just bring it up to the level with the caramel and the coconut and then crank all of those up a bit, I would have gone higher, but as it were, still well above average. I gave it an 8. Feeling intangible, I really enjoyed this. Was it like drinking a Girl Scout Samoa cookie? No, even though it had the similar ingredients, but the way that it developed was very enjoyable, and the fact that I could pick them all out was quite nice, and I could still taste the base brown ale. I gave it a 9. Finally, as an example of the style, again, an excellent brown ale base. Then they added in ingredients, and the way that they interplayed with the brown ale base was excellent. I really enjoyed it. I think it was well done. I only docked it 1 point. 9 out of 10 for an example of the style. That brings the DuClaw Dirty Little Freak up to an 86 out of 100. So just 1 point higher than the Funky Buddha. For so much that these beers have in common, they're completely different beer drinking experiences. The commonality being just the base brown ale that was excellent by both brewers. And then it completely diverges in totally opposite ends of the spectrum from there. PB&J in one direction and kind of Samoa cookie in the other. And they were completely different beer drinking experiences. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I'm going to say it again. Brown ales, an underappreciated style in my opinion. You know, the next time you find yourself going to buy some to bring home, or you're at the bar and you're thinking about going for that porter, or you're thinking about going for that Oktoberfest beer, maybe split the difference. Go for a brown ale if you got one. It's I think you'll appreciate it. It really is a great beer style, and it kind of splits right in the middle of a couple different styles, so you really do get kind of the best of both worlds. It's got depth to it without being too deep. It's got maltiness without being too malty. It's got richness without being too rich. It's got, you know, just this kind of right in the middle of this Goldilocks zone between beer styles if you're looking for something darker. Give it a second look. I think you'll appreciate the decision. And as always, please like, subscribe, comment. Please do comment. I very much would like to engage with my viewers. I want to know what you think, what you like, what you didn't like, what ideas you may have, what suggestions you may have, what you want me to get rid of, what you want me to do more of. Please let me know. I'm doing this for me, yes, but predominantly for you. You know, if I don't have viewers, there's really no reason. It's just a crazy guy who's drinking beer talking to a camera lens, which is, it sounds insane. So please do engage with me. I do want to know what you think. And lastly, if you want to keep in the loop when our videos go live, you can just click the notification bell. It will let you know as soon as they go live on YouTube. And that wraps it for today. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.